Today, I am a very, very sad man because I just realized that we may never ever get out of the trash hole that the MCU has been digging for us over the last couple of years, man. I have just realized and I have accepted the fact that maybe this is over. Maybe the MCU is not going to ever reach the same heights that it reached during the peak timeline of the MCU. I'm talking about from the beginning of the MCU with Iron Man all the way up until Avengers Endgame. Now, of course, there were some inconsistencies. There were some worrisome decisions that the MCU made during that time period. But man, the highs were so high that the lowest of lows were not even detectable. Nobody cared about the lowest of lows of that peak MCU timeline. But it seems that ever since Endgame, MCU has fell off a cliff, man. And that cliff seems to be never ending because despite the MCU having some little bit of brilliance over the last couple of years, like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, like Loki, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, it seems that these highest of highs of the new MCU timeline, the new MCU phase of the multiverse, is so few and far in between that we're just being littered with stinkers. I'm talking about the Eternals. I'm talking about Thor Love and Thunder. Even though Black Widow wasn't really that bad, but that shit was forgettable as fuck. And even though Black Panther Wakanda Forever wasn't really that bad, it was pretty decent. But to be honest with you, do you guys really remember anything that happened in Black Panther Wakanda Forever other than the fact that they changed Namor from being an Atlantean to being a Talocan? Now, I like Namor in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but I still will not forgive the MCU for changing my boy Namor from being an Atlantean. They should have not done that. But as we go on and on, as we are re-evaluating all of the trash, mid, disastrous, and disappointing and forgettable projects slash shows slash movies the MCU have been shitting out, like the Marvels. The Marvels was so ass and forgettable that damn, I'm really surprised the MCU were confident enough to release that. Same with She-Hulk, that shit was booty cheeks. Same with Secret Invasion, a complete slap to the face of the real peak story of Secret Invasion from the 616 comics, and Echo, a forgettable and just boring show that the MCU thought that people would like. I don't know what's happening with the MCU, man.
That shit is fucking trash, dog. Get the fuck off the airwaves.
Oh, come.
They need new writers. And let me even talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. That movie is so laughable. That movie is a joke. In my honest opinion, it was mid. It was forgettable. What's happening with the MCU? I thought that this trend will end when we reach Captain America Brave New World, but I just got out of the theaters right now, and I'm gonna tell you this right now. This is a big disappointment. This is a big downgrade from Captain America Civil War. That peak movie, Civil War, despite it deviating from the source material, and they actually got so many things wrong from the source material, they still told a great, captivating story that literally will have you biting your teeth, that literally will have you sweating throughout the entire movie. So from seeing the quality just dip with the Captain America franchise, it really makes me sad because I did a review of the Captain America Brave New World trailer and I thought that it would be promising, but I did highlight that the usage of the Red Hulk is a big red flag in my honest opinion, because why in the hell are Hulk villains in a Captain America movie? I am just so shocked. And this movie made a lot of baffling decisions that I was scratching my head the entire time while I was watching the movie. Now, let me tell you some of the good aspects about the movie. And the main good aspect about the movie is Anthony Mackie's Captain America, because Anthony Mackie, I've always liked him as an actor, and I really liked when he was Falcon throughout the MCU's first timeline run. But when he now became Captain America, I was actually on board with him being Captain America in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But to be honest with you, I would have actually preferred if Bucky Barnes became Captain America before Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, because you know that is actually in line with the comics. But since they didn't do that, I still gave that show a chance. And even though Falcon and the Winter Soldier was pretty forgettable in my honest opinion, Anthony Mackie's Captain America was still entertaining enough that it actually gave me a little bit of hope in watching Captain America Brave New World, because he's a good actor and I like Sam Wilson's Captain America in the 616 comics. But man, when I watched this movie, I do think that Anthony Mackie's portrayal of Captain America was one of the only few great things about this movie, because every single other thing was booty cheeks to mid to disappointing, man. Now let me talk about Harrison Ford's Thunderbolt Ross, aka the Red Hulk. Now, Harrison Ford played a great Thunderbolt Ross in this movie, but there are some things about the characterization of Thunderbolt Ross and Red Hulk that I do not like in this movie, and that I also didn't like in the MCU timeline. Now, one of the main things I do not like about Thunderbolt Ross / the Red Hulk is because we barely really hear any dialogue from Thunderbolt Ross about his hatred for the Hulk. He only glossed over it for at least 15 seconds in this movie when he was explaining his brief history with the Hulk, but it was so brief, it feels like the MCU are trying to push Hulk away in the corner. They're not trying to make Hulk a focal point of the MCU. Now you're probably asking, yo, big bro, why are you bringing up Hulk in a Captain America movie? Well, I'm going to answer that question with the question, and my question is, why are you including Hulk villains in a Captain America movie? Thunderbolt Ross should not be a villain of Captain America yet. Sure, yeah, he was an adversary / antagonist to the Hulk in the Incredible Hulk movie, but in my honest opinion, he should still be a Hulk villain. Same with the Leader. So when I see Thunderbolt Ross interact with Captain America, I know the route they were trying to portray. I know what they were trying to go for, because remember, Thunderbolt Ross became the president even before this movie, even before Endgame, because Thunderbolt Ross was the main person that was the sole reason why the Sokovia Accords was actually set in motion and put in place, that caused the superheroes to be forced to register with the US government. So that was Thunderbolt Ross's fault. But the reason why I'm still talking about that is because in the 616 comics, Thunderbolt Ross was never ever a president. He was never elected as a president in the 616 comics, so that deviates from his character. And I feel that the reason why they made Thunderbolt Ross the president of the MCU, just so that they can pluck Thunderbolt Ross into this movie and they can have an excuse for using the Red Hulk to fight Captain America. Now, let's actually talk about the plot. I know right now that this introduction to the plot is a long introduction, but I just had to get that off my chest. But the way that this movie starts off is that we see some action scenes between Captain America. He is taking on the Serpent Society. Now, let me talk about the Serpent Society before I talk about Falcon, because I don't like both portrayals, man. The Serpent Society in the MCU right now is so boring, is so MCU-ified, because if you know the Serpent Society in the comics, they have outlandish and bombastic costumes, man. Their costumes are really colorful. Their costumes literally scream the Serpent Society, because their name is called Serpent Society. Most of them act like snakes. Most of them look like snakes. Most of their costumes resemble snakes. So why did they make the Serpent Society just look like rogue mercenaries? That is so boring, man. I'm tired of the MCU not really trying to adapt the actual comics, man. I'm tired of the MCU just portraying these characters as people that they are not. And by me saying that is because when you look at these characters on the big screen and you look at them on the comic page, on the panels, they look completely different in my honest opinion. I am so shocked and baffled that the MCU are still continuing this trend of making every single character they adapt so boring and making them look so boring in my honest opinion. And now we get to Falcon, aka Joaquin Torres. And if you know Joaquin Torres in the 616 comics, you know that he is a mutant. You know that Joaquin Torres, he actually has powers. And the way that Joaquin Torres gets his powers is because he was kidnapped by the Sons of Serpent as part of their agenda to capture people on the border to send them to Karl Malus for experimentation. And this experimentation, it caused Joaquin Torres to be mutated into a half human, half Falcon hybrid of a mutant. So in the comics, he has real wings attached to his body, but in the movie, they made Falcon just look like a Temu version of Sam Wilson's Falcon, but they just painted his suit green, and that is boring. Like, man, can you just make him a mutant? Can you just give this guy some powers? I know probably they're going to do that in the future, but to have Joaquin Torres look like a human right now is a disservice to Joaquin Torres's character in the 616 comics. But after all of this, after Sam Wilson, you know, he infiltrated the Serpent Society's first hideout, he defeated them. They are actually going on this wild goose chase because this is tying back into Thunderbolt Ross, because all of these orders are being from Thunderbolt Ross, because Thunderbolt Ross, he wants Sam Wilson to work for him. And not just that, he wants Sam Wilson to reform the Avengers so that they can work for Thunderbolt Ross. But as this is going on, we're seeing that Captain America, he is encountering Giancarlo Esposito, aka Sidewinder. And Sidewinder in this movie, like I said with the Serpent Society, he looks so boring, man. He looks so bland. Just look at him. They made him look like a typical mercenary. The Sidewinder in the 616 comics looks completely different, man. Once you see the side-by-side comparisons, you will realize that, damn, the MCU is so boring. They don't want to really care about the comic book side of Marvel. They just want to adapt characters and basically change them completely. But as this is going on, we're seeing that Captain America, he is bringing Joaquin Torres to train with the first ever Captain America in history in the MCU and in the comics, and that person is Isaiah Bradley. And I like Isaiah Bradley's character in the movie, you know, even though we don't really kind of know too much about his real motivations. The only real motivation we know about Isaiah Bradley in the movie is that he does not want anything to do with Thunderbolt Ross, because Thunderbolt Ross was the reason why he was wrongfully accused and wrongfully sentenced to prison, but he just got released 2 years ago. So Captain America, he wants Isaiah Bradley to accompany him and Joaquin Torres to the White House so that they can meet with Thunderbolt Ross for a big important meeting. During this meeting is where Thunderbolt Ross, he actually talks about the aforementioned proposal that Captain America will work for him and the Avengers as well. But as this meeting is going and Thunderbolt Ross, he is explaining the discovery of adamantium because of the celestial wreckage in the Indian Sea, we see that Isaiah Bradley out of nowhere attempts to shoot and kill Thunderbolt Ross right in front of everybody. So this causes everyone to panic, and Captain America is trying to tell Isaiah Bradley, what are you doing? But it's too late. Isaiah Bradley, he runs away. He's running and running, and he actually is out of breath. But when Captain America catches up with him, Isaiah Bradley now tells Captain America, I don't know what's going on, what just happened. But the reason why Isaiah Bradley did this is because somebody behind the scenes is pulling the strings throughout the entire movie. And this is where my other problem creeps up, and that is the leader in this movie, Samuel Stern, to be exact, because we recently saw Samuel Stern in the MCU in the Incredible Hulk movie, but we really haven't seen him up until right now. And man, his look for the entire movie is so ass, man. When I I saw his look, I could not help but laugh out loud in the entire theater because it's just so bland. Like, just look at him. The Leader in the comics looks way cooler, in my honest opinion. When you look and see both designs side by side, you will realize that, damn, Marvel just doesn't really like to adapt the real costumes, the real look of these characters, because sure, yeah, the Leader's head is pretty large in the movie and he does have veins popping out of his head, but in the comics his head is much larger. And sure, yeah, sometimes he doesn't have veins, sometimes he has veins, but his skin is green, his skin is emerald green. But in the movie his skin is barely even green. You can see some of the real human skin on Samuel Stern in the MCU. So I'm like, bro, come on, just adapt, man. It doesn't hurt to adapt correctly from the comics, man. But basically the Leader, he is pulling the strings throughout the entire movie. He's blackmailing Thunderbolt Ross because before the movie, Thunderbolt Ross was the reason why Samuel Stern went to prison. So basically Thunderbolt Ross, he felt guilty about that. But also Thunderbolt Ross, he was actually dying from some disease. So Thunderbolt Ross, he went to the Leader for some pills, some gamma pills that can basically not let Thunderbolt Ross die too soon. But these gamma pills are actually spiked because the Leader, he is actually amplifying these pills and making it stronger and stronger every dose so that Thunderbolt Ross would eventually turn into the Red Hulk. Now, I'm not gonna talk about Sabra, the character, because she's an Israeli soldier, and if you know her in the comics, in my opinion, she's an ass character. She is so forgettable in the comics, so it was no surprise that she was also forgettable in the movie. But one thing I would like to point out about her in the movie is that her look is completely different than how she looks like in the comics. It seems that this movie has a trend of just making everyone not look like how they're supposed to look like, because Sabra in the 616 comics, she actually has a costume, but in the movie she just wears a leather vest throughout the entire movie. Like, damn, these niggas at the MCU are so boring and so uncreative right now. What's going on? But eventually, Captain America, he now reaches up with Giancarlo Esposito's Sidewinder. He beats him. He now captures him, and when Giancarlo Esposito, he is captured, he explains to Captain America that, look, there's somebody else that is controlling everything. The buyer that the Serpent Society wanted to work with is pulling the strings with every single thing that's happening, and he's causing this war with America and Japan. So Captain America tells Thunderbolt Ross this, but Thunderbolt Ross was already en route to Japan. He was already en route to the Indian Ocean because Japan was also simultaneously en route to that same location so that both countries can exploit the resources that the dead celestial giant holds, because both countries really want that sweet adamantium. But when this happens, when this misunderstanding happens, it causes a temporary war between both countries, and we see that Captain America and Falcon, they actually successfully stop the war in time, but this causes Falcon to get really hurt. He gets hurt so bad that he is put under critical condition. But during this little skirmish, we see a glimpse of Thunderbolt Ross's eventual turn into the Red Hulk. But we don't see this just yet, because we will later see his real turn into the Red Hulk at the end of the movie. And when he turns into the Red Hulk, he's given a speech, but during this speech, the Leader, he turns himself in because his plan failed, but his real plan is to ruin Thunderbolt Ross's legacy. And the way that he does that is that he finally hacks into the White House during Thunderbolt Ross's speeches, and he now exposes Thunderbolt Ross for working with the Leader, and this causes Thunderbolt Ross to throw a tantrum, and due to the amount of pills he was taking from the Leader, Thunderbolt Ross now turns into the Red Hulk. Now, the fight with the Red Hulk and Captain America was pretty good. I'll be honest with you. I liked how They were just fighting everywhere. They destroyed the White House. They actually were going crazy, in my honest opinion. I thought the CGI will look worse, but the CGI looks pretty good. And one thing that I like about this fight is that Red Hulk did not die. So since he didn't die, I want the Red Hulk to fight the Hulk later in the MCU, and the fight has to be serious, the fight has to be bloody, and the fight has to be crazy. But the thing about this fight is that there's something I don't like about this fight, and that is the characterization of the Red Hulk, because in the 616 comics, the Red Hulk does not turn into the Red Hulk to fight Captain America, man, because MODOK and the Leader actually conspired to turn Thunderbolt Ross into the Red Hulk during the Hulk being sent to that world because of the Illuminati. So when they approach the Red Hulk to give the Red Hulk powers, Thunderbolt Ross, he instantly accepts, and he gets the gamma energy necessary for him to turn into the Red Hulk. But in the 616 comics, we see a big difference between both Red Hulks, and that is in the comics, the Red Hulk, he still retains his intelligence. The Red Hulk still is smart. The Red Hulk is still an evil mastermind when he turns into the monster. But in the movie, Thunderbolt Ross turns into a mindless dumbass, and the Red Hulk in the movie acts exactly like the Hulk. There is nothing that differentiates both characters in the MCU, whereas in the 616 comics, the Hulk is usually known for being a dumbass or being a mindless idiot, except when he turns into the Devil Hulk, man, that's crazy. But when we see both characters in the comics, there is a stark contrast in terms of their intelligence. But in the movie, they made Thunderbolt Ross still be a dumbass, and I'm like, damn, that's pretty crazy. This entire movie just changed everything about Marvel, man. They made Captain America fight Hulk villains before the Hulk fought them himself. They changed Joaquin Torres' Falcon's entire origin and entire moveset, entire look. I do not care about Sabra. I do not like her character in the comics, nor do I like her character in the movie, but they made Sabra's costume so ass. They just gave her a leather jacket. They changed the entire look of the Serpent Society. They changed the entire look of Sidewinder. This movie changed damn near everything that we know in the 616 comics, and I'm just thinking to myself, damn, MCU, can you please stop, man? I'm tired, boss. I do think that the MCU needs a reboot of some sort, because the MCU has gotten so many things wrong from the source material. Before, it was acceptable because they gave us great stories, great movies, but now that they're producing stinkers after stinkers after stinkers, I do believe that the MCU needs to be rebooted in some way, man. So I hope that the Fantastic Four and the Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars can give us that answer, man. But Captain America Brave New World is not really that good, man. It's pretty mid, it's pretty forgettable. That's the end of the video. I'm out. Peace.